Okay. Where did this come from?
Nice.
Yes, it's my 4th of July picture. I don't see where do I turn it off? Oh, here it is. Okay. Hello, everybody. So we know that we are very informal here, and nothing kind of sets us back. Although we have lots of enemy forces surrounding us, but we survive. We have our guest, Nicholas Chamberas. Nick, wonderful person, a wonderful man. Everybody says persons nowadays. He's a man, right, Nick?
I hope so. I
Yeah,
really,
what do you mean?
yes, yes, I am. And you're a wonderful man too, Yuri.
Yeah, as sometimes Mark Simon says, let me check. Yeah, in similar situations. So, uh, Nick, a lot of things, and we are capable of taking any turn in our conversation from light to pretty tragic in the way things unfold around us. But you have your regular writing published on Newsmax and other sources. And what kind of is your preferred channel of communications with the rest of the world in terms of politics, and what's the subject nowadays?
So, if you're really interested in getting past all the spin and all the tainted and slanted coverage, my column is called Political Behavior. You can find it on Newsmax in the opinion section. And I have something coming out soon. And, it talks about how the left has been fomenting violence for a really long time, and how they've ratcheted things up to such an unbearable extent in the last few years. And there's no reason why anywhere in the United States we should not be able to wear a MAGA hat or a Biden Harris or a Harris whatever hat anywhere in this country. Our country was founded on natural law, and freedom of expression is embedded in the Constitution of the United States. We can agree to disagree, and we should treat each other respectfully. But they've fomented this almost wannabe Robespierrean reign of terror in this country, where if we disagree with each other, the other side is evil. And really, they've done this because it's the only way that they can win the argument. They're trying to transform our country, obviously, and they don't want to talk about the issues. So they just want to they want to demonize President Trump. They want to demonize Republicans. Even before the assassination attempt, where President Trump was shot in the ear, I think we can all agree on that.
There's a photograph that was circulating literally 5 minutes after the attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. There was this photo, and everybody was like, "Wow, Pulitzer! Here's the photographer who took the picture, and he's a reputable guy. He's not some photoshopping, creature."
Yeah, and now they're trying to rewrite history. The Democratic Party sympathizing outlets. We don't know. Well, let's see. His personal physician has written several letters to Congress and other government institutions declaring that the president was struck by a bullet in the ear. We have pictures showing bullets whizzing by his ear. But okay, sure. We don't have any footage that shows any shrapnel, any debris hitting his ear. But no, sure, okay.
Only in Christopher Wray's Suspicious Mind.
Yeah, anything is possible. Maybe it was a mosquito, right? Yuri, maybe it was a mosquito.
Yeah.
When we can't even accept basic, indisputable facts into the record, it shows how much we're falling. But we're not falling. We're laughing at them because they have a great public relations machine, but they are terrified of another Donald Trump presidency. There's no other way around it.
Nick, let me ask you. This is far from being the first attack on Christianity. The episode in the opening show for the Paris Olympics this year, but the outcry is absolutely unparalleled. It's only getting stronger every day, and what kind of gives? What's the reason of such a strong
So
reaction? Because it looks like we are what's it inured to things of that nature already.
that, that excellent choice of words. We are, and I blame Christians. I blame Christians and I blame churches because against any other religion, they would have never attempted anything like this. Let's be clear. And kudos to the other organized religions for not accepting, for letting it be known in advance that they would never get away with something like that. But Christianity is in retreat. Religious organizations are terrified in each country. Sometimes there's tax exempt issues, sometimes there's funding issues. But the outcry from Christians and organized Christian groups needs to be much stronger. The language needs to be much stronger, much clearer. We will no longer accept anti Christian bigotry anywhere, not in this country, not in Europe, not in Africa, not anywhere. This was such an attack, such a vile depiction that was clearly aimed to mock Christians, to mock a belief in God. And it was, of all the places, it was at the Olympics. So I'm asking for whether you're Catholic, Greek Orthodox, Protestant, Baptist, whatever Christian denomination you belong to, whether you're in the United States or another country, every religious leader needs to speak up and condemn this for what it was. We're not escalating, we're not raising the tone, but we need to make it clear enough is enough. This was disgusting, this was despicable, and there need to be consequences for whoever organized this event.
And only one company dared to boycott. They pulled their advertising at the Olympics, and the rest are still there. And I don't know. You see, it's kind of boycott seems like a weapon of the Stone Age, right? It's very rough. It's very kind of the other side rushes to boycott every advertiser who used to. You remember Glenn Beck boycotts. You remember Rush Limbaugh boycotts. Tucker Carlson's boycotts. They were writing to the advertisers. How can you advertise with this hoodlums, with those bad people on constantly bad behavior? But I think it's the time for us all to also make choices. Which product we buy, which company we support, and just as simple as that. It's like everybody's asking me what to do in our area. And by the way, I greet everybody who's listening here from Brighton Beach area, from Shipshead Bay area, from Southern Brooklyn area, all friends. And I have a few words in Russian for you later on. But this time, I met a few people. It's interesting. I'll allow myself to allow me to digress a little bit. We try to keep up to with the summer schedule, and early in the morning, like between 7 and 8, we're on the beach for a stroll, and come back to be here on time and to do some work. By the way, so and there's a lot of garbage there. And I addressed several times in Russian to my neighbors, to people who live around here. Being a district leader, it also kind of befitting to yell at people from time to time, and not to be, you know, have the cops called on me. So I'm on the beach, and we're collecting. My wife and I. We pick up some garbage, and we find a bag sometimes, and we put it in the bag. Sometimes we bring bag with us. So we fill up like 4 or 5 bags as we go from Brighton 14th to the pier and back. And there's no telling. There's such a pigsty, such a chazarai for those who speak Yiddish around here. It's just for any New Yorker, basically, because chazarai is a popular word in our area. So we go around, and people kind of tend to help us by picking a bottle cap or something and put it in our bag. And I say, "Here's a bag for you, ma'am. You can do the same. It's good exercise, and you walk, and you bend, and you develop your flexibility, etc." So we're making fun of it, and today, or not fun, making it fun for people to do. Likewise. So today we met a few people who were actually saying we're doing it because you asked us to do it. We watched your program, and we went, and we already picked up around us. Look at what we've done. I say, excellent. That's the plan. Next up, I want people who do this already on Brighton Beach to let me know and write to me, and I'll put you on the program. There will be 10 of us, whatever the number of people we need. But you see, the government fails us. At this point, the government of New York is failing us. We cannot count on anybody. We cannot
No.
count on all the beautiful machines who pick up like 15% of the trash that's on the beach. And people, we just need to do this, and that's a simple answer. Why is it so dirty around us? And another question: how do we win the elections? Bring 10 friends. November 5. Bring 10 friends. Make them vote ahead of time. Early voting is called. Make them vote by mail. Collect the ballots. Participate. But not just don't just sit there and you yelling that New York will never win. New York will forever be what it is right now, and only will get worse. No, not necessary. As long as you sit there, you have no voice.
Exactly. And keep in mind, you talk about New York. I'm certainly not going to lie to your audience and say that I think New York is going to go in the Trump column. I think it'll be much closer. I think if the circumstances align, President Trump can win New York as well. There's so many. I don't want to go off on any tangents because I've said before, and I don't see anything changing. But President Trump is headed for a landslide victory in November, so New York can go into the red column. And for those of you who think, oh, I'm just being an overly optimistic, Pollyannish analyst, I'd like to remind everyone that I was perhaps the first person, I was definitely among the first, to predict that we would not have a red wave in 2022, not a real red wave, and that it would be disappointing. I put my money where my mouth is, so to speak. I put this in writing months before it happened. So you know me, Yuri, and others know me. I'm not exactly Mr. Irrational Exuberance. I still think that President Trump will win in a landslide. But even if we don't win in a landslide, and even if New York doesn't go red, if we make Democrats work in New York, if we make them have to devote resources to New York, that's less resources they have in Georgia, less resources they have in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina. Do you want their volunteers free out of New York, not caring about New York, not working here? No, let them have to work to keep New York. So we're here. We're not going anywhere, right? Unless someone wants to go out and help in Wisconsin, which would be great, or some other state, fine. But if you're in New York, go out there, talk to voters. I think we each know at least 5 people in 2020 who are staunch Trump supporters, who blog, who write letters to the newspaper, old-fashioned style, who are watching all of these programs. We know at least 5 of these people and who didn't vote. Let's make sure they vote. Let's make sure their family and friends vote. So yes, absolutely.
No excuses. Nick, what was your first reaction when you learned about the switcheroo, Kamala Harris?
Bring it on. I was very happy. No, I'm not going to be mealy-mouthed and mincing words and trying to equivocate. I've said it before. I'll say it on your program again. President Biden, for all of his shortcomings, for all of his failings, and this has been a disastrous administration, maybe the worst in the history of the United States, he gave the Democrats the best chance to hold on to the White House. So obviously, because of that terrible debate performance, one big problem is he was bringing down the House races and the Senate races, and maybe a one-on-one matchup, he presented a better chance, but the energy wasn't there. However, with Kamala Harris, I think President Trump has an easier time than Joe Biden. Kamala Harris, the packaging right now is great. And again, forgive me, I'm trying not to go off into too many tangents because there's no way I'll have enough time to cover everything I'm thinking about right now. But basically, why is President Trump going to have an easier time with Kamala Harris than he would have with Joe Biden? Joe Biden went into those debates, and Joe Biden had the sympathy factor. And there is a sympathy factor in American politics. I'm not trying to be mean, but look at the debates with Senator Fetterman. He did terribly in those debates. He still won the election. So let's not underestimate Biden's chances. In those debates, Biden had the advantage of mumbling his answers. And we were almost, I looked at President Trump, and I certainly could be wrong. It almost looked like President Trump felt sorry for Biden a couple of times up there. He was very, he was careful not to look like he was too aggressive against Biden. He did correct him. Obviously, he won the debate in huge fashion. But you almost felt sorry for Biden up there. No one's going to feel sorry for Kamala Harris in the debate against President Trump. And she's not going to be able to mumble her answers. She's going to have to go up there, and she's going to have to defend, again, maybe the worst administration in the history of the United States. And she's not going to be able, she's going to have to give clear answers. Yes, she supports the Green New Deal. Yes, her administration tried to implement the Green New Deal. When she was a senator, she was ranked more to the left than Bernie Sanders. You can't change that. Democrats are great. They have a great PR machine. Anybody who's aided by the mainstream media and all these huge broadcast networks can have a strong PR machine. She does. The packaging has great, but when she goes in a debate against President Trump, she's going to have to answer these questions. Her signature issue has been basically advocating late-term abortion, partial birth abortion, 7-month abortion, 9-month abortion. That's been one of her calling cards. That's what she's going to have to account for. There's going to be a contrast. Right now, there's a honeymoon phase. The press and her acolytes are trying really hard to basically portray her as this middle of the road person. Middle of the road. Has there been anything middle of the road about this administration?
Listen, Roger Ailes famously loved to say, the only thing you can find in the middle of the road is roadkill. That's the middle of the road.
Well, they've been to the extreme left of the road on so many issues. Again, I'm asking your audience's understanding and forgiveness because there's just so many things about Kamala Harris, but this is one of the first things that comes to mind. When we had the horrific events in Butler, Pennsylvania, where one person died, President Trump nearly died, 2 other people were seriously injured, had to go to the hospital. How much money did Kamala Harris raise for the families of those people? Did she go on the air? Did she go on her social media?
I think she went and robbed the families of these people.
For crying out loud.
That's our Kamala.
Yeah, but guess what?
She's on the side of criminals all her career.
Yeah, the Minnesota Bail Fund, when these people were burning homes and small businesses, looting, and the money also went to other crimes, she asked people to donate to these funds. That's why the contrast is going to be so clear. And I'm not mincing words. This election is ours to lose. And we could lose it. We absolutely could lose it. The Democrats are setting traps, some big traps, some small traps. And unfortunately for us, we can't seem to get out of each other's way. This is a really simple election. This is ours to lose. I think I'll just give you an example of why we have to be careful. Democrats do nothing by accident. Compared to the Democrats, Republicans are always at civil war. Why are we at civil war? I don't mean it literally, obviously, but Republicans are individualistic people. We have our own opinions. We believe in freedom of expression and thought. We're always arguing with each other, right? You've seen it. Democrats are far more unified. So when President Biden decided that he wasn't going to run for office all of a sudden, and this was depicted as a last-minute decision, and that there was infighting in the Democratic Party, and the Obamas were raising their concerns. Nonsense, folks. Let me tell you, this was planned weeks in advance. The whole rollout was scripted. And look, I personally think it's nonsense, but you could see how certain people are impressed by these mini commercials like the Kamala phone call from the Obamas. None of this was unanticipated. When you see the Clintons come right out the gate and say they're endorsing Kamala Harris, you really think they're going to do something like that unless they know the Obamas are on board? Come on. So on our side, of course, some people got carried away. They started, they fell for the hype about Biden is dead, this, that. Stay away from the noise. It's not that it doesn't matter if Kamala Harris knew that President Biden was not fit to serve these last few years. I'm guessing a lot of people knew what was going on. Let's stop talking about that. We don't need to talk about that. We don't need to talk about whether she was covering for the president or not. We have far more important issues. We need to talk about her record. So forget about the noise. Let's not get nasty. That's what the Democrats want us to do. They want us to make mistakes. They want us to get nasty. They want us to basically start taking victory laps. Don't fall for the hype. Talk about the issues. Don't talk about her personal life. I don't care. I think the American people, some may question.
In a way, it's inseparable from her career. You talk about her career, and it's closely related to her personal life. How you become so left, so ultra left, mega ultra left in the parlance of our times, like Kamala Harris. You talk about her communist parents. You talk about her communist sponsors, who are also capitalists, and they are carried away by big money that they got. So they support every crazy idea, and they are looking for spirituality that you can buy, you can spend the money on. That's the way she became this way. I don't see natural predisposition of a human being to be a commie coming from Soviet Union. It may worth something. This opinion.
I agree. The issue is people in America right now, people are struggling. Whether you're working class, middle class, upper middle class, this is an unprecedented, tumultuous time. And people just don't have the time to dig into these things.
Sure.
So her communistic predilections are well known and concerning. We should talk about that. Her personal relationships, the issue with that is when we're talking about her personal relationships, we're not talking about the disaster at the border, which she owns lock, stock, and barrel, by the way. We cannot let her off the hook. And that's what I'm talking about. I started making a list of Kamala Harris's liberal positions. And literally, you don't worry, I'm not going to ask for that. You need to give me another 4 or 5 hours on this program for us to cover every one of them.
Oh, okay? Let's do it right now. Let's 5 hours.
Look, for example, this just comes to mind right now.
Yeah.
This is somebody who has a temperament. She criticized a judicial nominee because he was a member of the Knights of Columbus. And I think she made an indirect comparison to the Ku Klux Klan. This is the person who's running for president against President Trump. People need to know that this is the temperament. This is the mentality of the Democrats' candidate. This is someone who championed the Equality Act, who basically would have forced parents to let their young children be mutilated because doctors decided that they can modify or remove certain parts of the anatomy because, a child thought that they were a boy or a girl before they were teenagers. This is who is running for president, folks. That's why I'm saying this is simple. This is not that complicated. We are close to victory, but again, we just have to be careful. We can't take the bait of the Democrats. They're going to come up with a bunch of polls, and a bunch of like the
Oh, polls are absolutely crazy. I go to a Real Clear polling website because they are just getting the average. Every particular each particular poll may be kind of having their own predilections and their own biases, and they skew the results this way or the other. But uh, after all, what the RCP does is they draw the average out of all those polls, and they involve like 50 polls, maybe just at a glance. I didn't count them, but there's several dozens of them, and only three show that Kamala is winning, and all three are what? It's Reuters, it's NPR, and there are also three polls, I think, conducted by Susquehanna. And there's three similar names. So that's it. The rest is showing Trump well ahead of her, as it should be, because you cannot, person who was president once, person who has business uh, acumen, and who has definitely results to show in both areas that he got, in every area where he got involved. He has a beautiful wife. He had a successful sensational TV show. He built the New York big chunk of New York skyline and world skyline as well, and he became a president. How can you get a better resume in the world? Just tell me. Whoever your parents are, however many billions you would inherit, and he didn't inherit billions, of course. But with all the money in the world, how can you buy a resume like this? You can't.
no, no. Good
And you
point.
compare it to whom? To Kamala Harris. And let me now go into the personal details of her life. No, I won't do this. I'm ashamed. I won't do it on your watch.
No, look, I really, our biggest enemy here is overconfidence. And I'm sorry, we have it on our side. We have certain people who falsely connect themselves as direct parts of the Trump campaign when they're not. And it's really a bunch of clickbait nonsense. And unfortunately, the Democrats are looking for us to make a mistake. They know that they're in trouble, and I can go into how they plan to do this. They need to repackage Kamala Harris. So they basically, all of their allies in the media, and I saw this, I forget, I wish I could remember which daily it was, but some daily actually wrote the Republicans are trying to paint Kamala Harris as a leftist, even though she's clearly a centrist and a moderate. And I just started laughing. I stopped reading right there. The Democrats obviously are going to try to repackage her. She's going to have to pick a vice presidential nominee with moderate bona fides. Let's see who that is. And they're going to try to turn this into basically, they need to make this nasty. So they're going to try to just keep up these ad hominem attacks against President Trump and Senator J.D. Vance and calling them weird, hoping that Republicans make a mistake in their response. So then, some Yahoo is going to say something stupid about Kamala Harris. And then what's going to happen. The news cycle is going to be dominated. They're hoping that this happens anyway. The news cycle is going to be dominated by these remarks for a week. Then the next week they find something else. They don't want to talk about the records. They don't want to talk about the tens of millions of illegal aliens that Kamala Harris is directly responsible for letting into this country. And as an extension, she's basically caused crime to skyrocket in once very safe towns and communities. Everywhere in the country, there is no exception. Places where certain crimes were unheard of, it's now commonplace. So we need to be talking about her record against President Trump's record. There is no argument. Once you start comparing their records, once you make her own the Biden presidency, which she does, she is his vice president, she is his choice to succeed him. This election will not be close.
No, it's amazing, and this rhetorical devices that they have. Yesterday, I was thinking about it. I heard it like for the umpteenth time when they say that the crime rate amongst the illegals is lower than among the Americans. You heard this,
Yuri,
right?
what's my 3-point shooting percentage in basketball? Do you know?
No, never
How could you
played.
possibly how could you possibly know that, right? Guess what? We don't track, we don't keep statistics on illegal alien crimes. That's one of the oldest tricks in the book by the left. But if you look at the prison population of people who are not here legally, it's actually higher than average. So yes, illegal aliens are committing crimes at a higher rate. Just because we don't track something doesn't mean it's not happening. People might actually contest whether I've actually made a 3-point shot, but believe it or not, I have. Okay, no more.
And
Joking.
also, there is a what I was thinking about is like in sports, continuing your line of thinking, the sports line. There's a such thing as an unforced mistake, or in a situation of South Brooklyn, somebody's defecating in the hallway of the building you live in, and you come out and you say, shame on you, clean after yourself immediately, don't do this, who are you, etc., etc., etc. And the person tells you it was dirty before me. It doesn't mean anything, what I did here, because everybody's throwing the trash here, so I added a little bit, so what's the big deal? So don't let those people in. That's the thing. Don't add to whatever. If we allow that the situation not as good as we would think of ourselves, being not crime prone, etc., and all being dovish, which is far from the truth, but that's how we are. But why we have somebody else in the country who will be exacerbating the situation? Obviously, not a day goes by without any some news in this regard in the newspapers or TV. Always a crime happening, and they report it left and right. Reported the outlets report about illegal migrants, illegal aliens crimes committed in the United States, mostly towards women, mostly about very women who are unable to protect themselves, young girls and older ladies, especially in New York. It happens left and right. Uh, Crazy people attack them. People feel helpless. People feel defenseless, and what can I tell you? It's a pretty grim picture, which is somehow Kamala Harris doesn't see any part of this picture at all. She's looking
Well,
at something else.
she owns the picture, and um, that's why Democrats are in a bind. They're used to these sort of skittish, ultra politically correct, pre-canned candidates. The last, besides President Trump, the last Republican president we elected fought back. That was George W. Bush. After President Bush, until President Trump, all the other candidates basically just fought fire with, hiding under their desks. The Democrats would come after them with these ridiculous attacks. So the facts are on our side. I don't want to start listing the innocent young people murdered by illegal immigrants who had been detained for crimes other than being here illegally beforehand, who were given shelter and subsidies by our government, funded with our own money. So I look forward to this conversation about what's going on at the border. Kamala Harris can tell us, and the whole Democratic Party can tell us, not to believe our lying eyes. We have maybe 20 million people who entered the country since Biden became president. He opened the border wide. We have something like, I don't know the exact number, but we've let hundreds of people who are on official terrorist watch lists in this country from the Biden administration. The American people are sick and tired of illegal immigration. They know that the Democrats have no plan to do anything about it. They know they don't want to secure the border because this is a larger conversation. This is about a globalist hegemony. This is about basically you have like the World Economic Forum and the people at Davos, they're laughing at the American construct. They're laughing at the idea that America is the last country that they don't control. And hopefully they won't control anymore. Because the last 4 years has been either a third Obama term or basically doing the bidding of the globalist oligarchs and plutocrats. So basically, back to the border, that's going to be a key point in a debate. So for 4 years, Kamala Harris was the border czar. Yes, she was, whether they don't want to admit it, they don't want to acknowledge it, they don't want to own it. They own it. It's theirs. She was responsible for this disaster at the border. That illegal immigration is one of the biggest issues facing Americans, concerning Americans. The polling shows that. Right now, there's the honeymoon period, like I mentioned before, for Kamala Harris. Because people, believe it or not, people don't know that much about her. She has not exactly been a notable vice president. She hasn't stood out for anything. They don't know about her role in this border disaster. That's why she's at where she is in the polls. Once the American people, and it's the summer, and people are taking it easy, and you always want to be optimistic about anyone. You don't want to hear negative things immediately. But once voters start paying careful attention to this race, once people who haven't decided, right? Obviously, we've decided. The Democrats, James Carville has decided, right? Once people who are independents, moderates, moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, once they sit down and say, all right, where do we want our country? Where do we want our country? Where do we want to take our country in the next 4 years? They're going to look at the border and they're going to see this chaos. They're going to see the fact that because of their policies, home ownership has become, for average people in this country, for working class families, middle class families, home ownership has become a pipe dream, a fantasy, something akin to a visit from Santa Claus.
Unattainable.
Exactly. You're looking at people who are paying 70% of their income for rent in our country. Is this sustainable? Of course not. Illegal immigration plays a key role. Kamala Harris is an open borders champion. That hasn't become apparent yet to most voters. It will very soon. So again, I remain very confident about our chances in the election.
But it's like explosive mix what we have on the left. It's one is extreme silliness exemplified by Kamala Harris, and she's a perfect combination, by the way, of those two factors. It's extreme silliness in public behavior, in speeches that I understand her sense of entitlement when she sputters nonsense and expects people to applaud her. Like the passage of time, like the burden and burden, like what else was there? So we keep track of those things. And on the other side, we have sheer evil. We have sheer evil that is showing itself through, again, silly things like this word weird. I want to show the supercut in the next program in Russian so people would see it, because I think it may have it kind of flew by some of my viewers in Russian. But in English, it was all over the place. You switch the channels and everybody's saying the same word weird nowadays when it comes to J.D. Vance.
So forgive...
Who's running this operation?
Yeah,
it's just...
forgive the sports analogies, but
okay.
The Kamala Harris and the Democrats have about as much business calling J.D. Vance weird as I do saying that Stephen Curry's jump shot is weird. Okay, nice try. I understand where they're taking this. So, like I said, they have to make this personal. They have to turn this nasty. They have to project this image of Kamala Harris as Mamala, like America's mom, which is just not true.
Yeah, with the Jewish tinge to it, by the way, because Mamala is like shtetl talk.
Yes. So first of all, there are memos. Apparently, there are memos where she directs junior staff not to look her in the eye. So
Mhm.
I have a hard time viewing Vice President Harris as Kamala in any sense. But it was a so for your audience who may not have caught this, um, they have to try to dehumanize Republicans, and it's a shame after what happened with President Trump in Pennsylvania, how they continue this, albeit a little more implicitly and strategically. But they have to dehumanize Republicans, right? They don't want to talk about the issues. Like I've said before, we could be talking 4 or 5 hours on the issues. They have to avoid their record. They have to avoid their true positions on the issues. So what do they have left? Oh, this guy's weird. They're hoping it sticks. So then everybody in the mainstream media runs with it. This guy is weird. No, this guy actually grew up in poverty, right? Like so many Americans. He grew up in poverty. He grew up in a single parent household. He was raised by his grandmother under very difficult conditions. He served in the Marines. He actually put himself through, he graduated college in 2 years, and he went to law school. There's nothing weird about that. He has a beautiful wife, a beautiful family. He was a successful entrepreneur. There's nothing weird about that. Yes, you know what? Maybe, actually, forgive me. Maybe I owe you all an apology. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh on the Democrats. I guess to people like Kamala Harris, somebody who's family-oriented, patriotic, serves their community, is an entrepreneur. Yes, that's weird to the Democratic Party of 2024. Probably. Otherwise, if you're trying to make an argument that there's something weird about him, that's absurd. It didn't stick. I think it's going to really backfire on the Democrats. But this is just a preview of what's going to come in the next few months remaining in the election.
Yeah.
Just nasty personal attacks, the nonsensical. I mean, weird. You want to talk about weird? Have you seen
Joe Biden's family? Maybe, possibly.
The Christmas shows. You want to talk about weird? That's weird, folks. Come on. But again, they're trying to build this coalition. They're trying to hold on to power, and they just don't. You know, the rollout of this was very impressive. Like I said, you know, they managed to punk certain people and make them take the bait. The rollout was to be expected. They had an enormous amount of help. You know, there are a lot of, I've said this on your show and other shows before, there are a lot of very powerful interests, not just in the United States, but all over the world, that are intimately involved in trying to make sure President Trump does not get another 4 years. This is so important to them, and they are doing everything they can. But it backfires often because they're out of touch. There's nothing weird about J.D. Vance. They can slime him all they want. And, you know, there are elements in our own party who think this is the 80s and the same economic conditions and issues that were relevant in the 80s are there today, and they may want to attack J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was an outstanding VP pick. There were a couple of other choices that would have also been outstanding. Ben Carson would have been outstanding. Tom Cotton, Elise Stefanik, Lee Zeldin. There's too many. Marco Rubio. But J.D. Vance is an absolutely amazing choice. He's going to help with working class voters. And, you know, if that's all they got, again, I am very confident that as long as we remain united, we work really hard. So the Democrats, look, they're going to have unlimited funds. Please understand this. Money will not be an issue for the Democrats. Democrats like, oh, Kamala Harris raised, I don't know, over $100 million in X amount of hours. I'm surprised she didn't raise $1 billion. The big corporate interests are on the side of the Democratic Party. They will have unlimited funding. We already know they're going to have mainstream media. They have Google. They have the search engines. They have this. So basically, what do we have? We have to affect the biggest grassroots movement in the history of the United States. And we're actually doing that right now. So Google can do whatever they want to omit search results. They can alter results, whatever they want to do. But basically, we need to have people on every block, people in every neighborhood going door to door, making the phone calls, sending texts, sending emails. You cannot fight grassroots organizing. yes, social media, the internet plays a huge role. There is no, like, I remember a conductor once said in a marching band, they march. Nothing beats live music. Nothing beats pounding the pavement. And President Trump is so far ahead in that area. Now, do we need funding for those groups? Do we need funding for Get Out the Vote? Absolutely. Like I said, the Democrats are going to have unlimited funds, unlimited power, unlimited boots on the ground. But we have real believers. This election, I don't think we've had a more distinct choice in a presidential election since 1860. And I don't say that lightly. The contrast between these two visions for our country couldn't be clearer. On the one hand, you have Kamala Harris and the Democrats who want to continue their neo-corporatist, socialist, totalitarian, victimhood, division, politics of personal destruction, pitting one group against the other, attacks on the family, attacks on religion. You basically have one group who wants to say the government is your new family, the government is your new boss, basically, not even a family. The government will decide everything for you. And you have the President Trump and the Party of Freedom. We're the Party of Freedom. We're the party who wants to help individuals rise up, but to do it on their own terms. We don't want to pick winners and losers like the Democrats are doing. We don't want to destroy the middle class. We don't want to destroy the working class. The Democrat vision is no middle class, no working class. You have the super rich, which they're part of, they're good, and you have the poor reliant on the government. They need you to rely on the government. That's why, again, this election is, you have the clearest choice, the biggest distinction between the platform since 1860. You have, again, think about, voters know what's going to happen 4 more years of Biden. 4 more years of Biden, you're not going to have women's sports anymore. His Title IX revisions will basically make it impossible for biological females to compete in women's sports. You'll have that gone. They've tanked the economy. Inflation is killing. We've already discussed inflation. I've mentioned wages on your show. We've had anywhere between, some economists estimate that real wages have declined anywhere between 3 to 6% under this administration. What do you think is going to change with a Kamala Harris presidency? Nothing. If you look at foreign policy, we basically had a feckless, weak, anemic, impotent foreign policy that embraces our enemy. Iran will have a nuclear weapon within the first year of a Kamala Harris presidency. Is that really what we want? If you are against war, do you really think that countries are going to be as careful with Kamala Harris as they would with the President Trump administration? We had an unprecedented peace and prosperity under President Trump. So again, the distinction couldn't possibly be clearer. The choice is a stark one, and that's why I'm really confident about our position in this race.
Nick, there are 2 questions, 1.5 question from one of our listeners, and one is a question for you. Please ask your guest if J.D. Vance indeed said that government can regulate price policy of private enterprises. Was that a true statement?
So
if you followed, I didn't follow him.
So there's a couple of areas where they're trying to attack J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance, he does support certain populist policies. And you have parts of the Republican Party that basically, and I'm a free trader, I agree with the free market, but you can't be so absolutist in every area. And I guess I think J.D. Vance made some comments about, would there ever be a time where a government can intervene in terms of health prescription drug prices? And I don't know if that's what your guest is referring to, but J.D. Vance did say, yes, in certain situations, the government can intervene about prices. So we need to be very careful about that, because yes, we want pharmaceutical innovation in this country. We don't want to put too many restrictions on private enterprise. At the same time, we don't want to make it impossible for someone who needs insulin to get it. We don't want people dying in the streets. So that's why that's another area where we can't fall into the trap set by the Democrats, because the Democrats are going to try to set among the many traps the Democrats are going to set. Two of the things they're going to try to get us with are Social Security, because you have people on our side, you have people on the Democrat side, but you have people on our side who are advocating for cuts to Social Security, which I think is ridiculous. So again, without talking about this for hours and hours, you want to win these elections, you want to win the White House, you want to take back the Senate, keep and grow your majority in the House, stop talking about cutting Social Security, for the love of goodness, right? The other thing is going to be healthcare. Some people basically want to go back to a system in the 80s where 99% of people got their healthcare from their private employer. The problem with that is many companies now don't offer health insurance. They don't offer the kind of health plans that they offered even 10 years ago. We can't just have a system where you get insurance from the private sector or you're on the street, left to die. So again, I understand Obamacare was a disaster, is a disaster. We need to repeal it, but we need to replace it. So I think some people criticize JD Vance for those things, but we have to be careful. We're not winning these elections if we tell people that we're cutting your Social Security and taking away your health care. That's a suicide mission. So I don't know if that's exactly what your guest is referring to, but those are things that JD Vance has talked about, which I'm aware of at least.
Yeah, also another thing is that I don't feel, speaking of JD Vance, I said it in Russian on my programs a couple of times already. I got to say it in English once I have this opportunity here, is that it was a kind of ingenious stroke on behalf of Trump's team, or personally Donald John Trump, to get JD Vance as his VP candidate pick, because he got settled with all the things that he said prior. Everything that he said about Donald Trump, as there's some hateful, spiteful remarks that he allowed himself to utter when he was a writer. And everybody knows, if you're a writer, you got to be democratish a little bit, liberalish, and you have to kind of be able to go along with the flow. And you're talking about the publishers, and every interview is a what they call it, the PR stunt. What's the word? Forgot the word. There's like a jargon, slang words for this. So we know these words. It comes to us in 2 minutes later. But he will have to explain to everybody how he became such a staunch Trump supporter up to the level of the VP candidate. So he'll have to explain, and he will convince a few people by retelling his story again and again. Every time he's being asked about his liberal or conservative or uber conservative or extra MAGA, super duper mega MAGA questioners, they will ask him, and he will be repeating the story again and again, and this will rub it into many minds. So give this.
I think it actually helps JD Vance. It shows that he's authentic.
Yeah.
A lot of people were skeptical about President Trump in 2015, 2016. Initially, I admit I was skeptical myself. I agreed with a lot of his positions, but I just thought to myself, doesn't this man know what would happen if he tried to implement these policies? And I have to, I've not made it a secret that I said, what's going on here? Like, is this some kind of a ruse or something? So a lot of people had healthy suspicions and questions about Donald Trump before he ran for president and while he was running for president. But the proof is in his administration. Look at what he did. Working class families saw unprecedented wage growth during President Trump's term. The economy was booming. He actually, I remember when he was talking about trade deals and the disaster that NAFTA was and the damage that China had done to this economy. And he basically went against the Republican heterodoxy at the time on free trade with China. There's nothing free about trade when it's unilateral. Free trade happens when it comes from both sides. We've never had free trade with China. So President Trump talked about these things. People were very skeptical, right?
Yeah.
President Trump talked about peace with North Korea. But again, time after time, he demonstrated he backed up his words with actions. So yes, J.D. Vance was skeptical. He wasn't the only one. He wasn't the first one. He may not be the last one. But the fact is, we'll put the 4 years of a Trump presidency against the 4 years of a Biden presidency on almost any issue at any time. Again, you want to talk about weird? Yes. If you are someone who supports global insecurity, endless wars, democracies under siege by these tyrants who have more weapons because they're not afraid of the United States, they're not afraid of Europe. If you support basically tanking the economy but making sure that 300-pound biological males can compete in women's weightlifting competitions, yes, you're going to vote for Kamala Harris. But if you want a return to prosperity and normalcy, you're voting for President Trump. And that's it. That's why I'm confident about this.
Yeah, to me, the stroke of genius, and it's more than genius, I would say. And I'm ready for all the, Trumpist, etc., Trumpster words thrown at me once I put the cap on. But think about it. He said he'll go back to Butler, PA, and have a rally there to honor Corey Comparatore, the fireman who got killed, who got shot by this murderer who aimed to assassinate Donald Trump. And he's saying, I'll go back there. I will have a rally there. And when you think about what they would call a chain of custody, it's who would offer anything like this to him? Who would come up with that? Dad, let's go. Don Jr. comes to him, says, Dad, let's go to the place where you nearly got killed and have another rally over there. Only he himself can come up with such an idea. No one else would dare to open his mouth to tell him to suggest a move like that. Don't you think?
It's symbolic of what's going on, and President Trump is defiant, and we see the first words that came out of his mouth were fight, 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 if I remember correctly, and fight not against each other, but he meant to fight this basically globalist hegemony that's trying to take every nation, where governments don't really exist, where a small group of leaders basically push decisions. People get in a room and decide the future of our country. No, Americans are going to decide the future of their country. And yes, the Democrats really, they're the ones who need to tone down the rhetoric, to lower the temperature after what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. And Corey Comparatore lost his life, gave his life for shielding his family. David Dutch, James Copperhaver almost gave their lives. And it's symbolic that we are not going to be intimidated. We're not backing down. We need to join together. We need to be unified as a country. We can disagree about politics without hating each other. This is the message we need to send, but this is the message the Democrats cannot send. Again, on every issue, they're wrong. On the economy, they're wrong. On social issues, they're wrong. On foreign policy, they're wrong. They've been a disaster. And we need to keep talking about the issues. Don't take the bait. Don't get nasty. Stick to the issues.
Nick, thank you so very much. And I'm always happy to have you here. And I think that this conversation came out quite informative and sometimes temperamental, but that's how we are. And we are on our way to victory in November. Remember, 10 friends. Every listener, 10 friends, please, who's watching this, English or Russian, just bring your friends to the voting site and vote Republican, vote Trump, November 5th.
Yuri, thank you for having me on. Thank you for all your questions, actually. I appreciate it in the comments. I'm following along as well. Always a great time, everybody. Take care.